If you feel like you've been looping in worry, thinking the same thoughts or slight variations of the same thought over and over and over, then this video is for you. We're going to talk about why that happens and what we can do about it. So, first of all, let's acknowledge that our brains are incredibly brilliant. When we think the same thought with repetition over and over, we actually create neural pathways in the mind that make it easier and more efficient to think that same thought again. So they become reinforced. They become the path of least resistance. And this is an incredibly beautiful thing. It makes us super efficient. And it allows us to do a lot of things without having to work so hard, focus so much, concentrate, all of those things. And yet, in the case of worrying, it can be used against us, right? We've created this loop, this default that is working against us rather than supporting us. And so we want to break that loop and reroute those neural pathways so that we can move in direction that we want to actually go. So by acknowledging that this is how our biology works, I think it gives us some power where we can say, okay, you know what? I don't have to shame myself for worrying. I don't have to feel bad about it. I don't have to call it low vibe. I don't have to make up all of this story or give it all meaning. I can simply recognize that this is how the brain works, and I can take responsibility for it, recognizing I have the ability to respond to this. I can see that I'm worrying and I can see that I want to make a change. I can use the power of my decision, my intention, my focus and concentration to actually create different neural pathways and change my life, change my brain in those ways, right? So this gives us an opportunity to have compassion for ourselves, give ourselves some grace, and move on from any shame or guilt that we've been feeling about this being the way that our brain is currently operating. Okay, so if you grew up in an environment where you were constantly in fear, doubt, and worry, maybe you were feeling it from other people, or you were just witnessing all of these things that were worrisome, then it makes perfect sense that your brain would be wired in this way. Likewise, if you're constantly surrounding yourself with people and conversations and witnessing things on social media or watching the news, doing all of these things that bombard your system with things that are very worrisome all of the time, then it makes sense that those neural pathways would be well paved and that your whole programming would be looking for more things to worry about, right? Your whole frame of reference would be, this is worrisome, and your brain would be seeking out, looking for more evidence and more things to worry about. So one of the things that we can do immediately is use the power of that energy and the power of our brain to say, okay, well, what if instead of worrying about all these things that could go wrong, or maybe these things that did go wrong in the past, or worrying about what could go wrong in the future, what if I actually take the power of that force and I redirect it into worrying about things going right? So what if I started to ruminate and have repetitive thoughts instead of what if it all goes this way and what if it all goes wrong? I changed it to what if it all goes right? What if everything started working out? What if there was a miracle? What if I knew what to do? What if I got the help I needed? What if the resources showed up? What if the ideas came to me? What if the opportunities were here already? What if I met the people that I need to meet, right? And so we're really starting to think, what if all of these things turned out for my highest and best good? And then that opens our minds and our awareness to be able to seek out all of the things that match those thoughts. So one of the things that you can do is just recognize, like, okay, I'm starting to go into this habituated default thinking about what if this all goes poorly, and I'm going to redirect it to, well, what if it all works out, right? And you can start thinking about that and feeling into that. So that's one thing. I want to go back to another reason why this can happen. So looping out can also happen if we've learned that fear and anger or rage, if we've learned that these emotions, these human emotions, are wrong or bad or unsafe, and we've squashed them down for years or decades, then that can really create a lot of anxiety, worry, all of this stuff as we're squashing and repressing these emotions. So another thing to really consider is is there anything underneath the worry that the worry is masking? Is there anything that if you could figure out, if you could work with people, if you could get support, if you could get help or learn ways to express those emotions in healthy, constructive ways, would that help free up some of the energy that is helping fuel this worry? So it's just a question to ask yourself of like, well, is this worry actually a coping mechanism because I'm suppressing other emotions that are a lot messier or scarier than worry? So that's something to consider. If you decide that, yeah, actually there is some stuff going on there, then again, start to ask your mind, okay, well, what if I found the people that could help me learn how to navigate these emotions in healthy, productive ways, right? So you're starting to ask your brain to look for and become aware of opportunities to express yourself in healthy ways. If you were never taught how to express anger or fear in healthy ways, and instead you've just been squashing it, then you're going to want to open your mind to say, okay, there are ways that these emotions can be expressed in healthy ways, and how can I discover those ways, right? So you're asking your mind to keep an eye out for these solutions, okay? Another reason that the worry loops can happen is actually if we're physically really depleted. I know this can be a tough one if we're already struggling to get enough sleep or get enough nourishment. It can be challenging to make these changes in our lives, but the reality is that if we're not properly nourished, if we're not getting the care that we need, then that affects our brain. It affects our ability to think clearly. And so if you're constantly looping in worry, you may ask yourself, okay, well, what does my body need that maybe I haven't been giving it lately? Do you need some more sleep? I know sometimes it can be so hard to get more sleep. I'm a mom, I get it, right? It's not always the easiest thing to just say, okay, I'm gonna sleep more. And we can have, insomnia and all kinds of different reasons why sleep can be interrupted. But just asking yourself, are there things that I can do to support myself in getting more sleep or getting more quality sleep? Are there opportunities that I've been ignoring, right? Are there things that I could be doing that I've been putting off that would actually really help me in taking better care of my body, which then would help improve my mind's ability to think clearly. Another thing is if you've been, really restricting your diet and not getting enough nourishment for whatever reason, then that can make worry really be exacerbated, right? Or if you've been over-exercising, if you've been sweating and just working your body really, really hard and depleting your energy, then that can also make it harder for your mind to really think clearly. Even if you've been under-exercising, right? Like if you haven't been giving your body enough of the movement that it craves, like same thing, right? So if you really feel like you're running on fumes and you're not getting what you need in your body, then just recognize that it's easy to get stuck in these loops of worry and rumination if we're not getting what we need physically in our body. So that's another reason it can happen. Another thing I wanted to mention is if you're ruminating and you're really finding yourself worrying about the same thing, if you can just observe it and just recognize like, okay, my brain is going there. And you can ask yourself, well, what is it actually ruminating on, right? What's the truth here? So if you're having thoughts that are repetitive about, trying to make a decision about something or worrying about a relationship or worrying about money or worrying about your health, if there's, this topic that just keeps coming and you just are looping and worrying, then you can ask yourself, okay, well, why am I worrying? Is there something that I need to make a decision about? Is there something that I need to do differently? And if you've already made a decision, so let's say you're worrying and second guessing your decision, or, you're just sort of in the habit of thinking about not enough money all the time, but there's actually nothing to do differently in that moment, then you're actually just worrying and it's completely counterproductive, right? So instead of worrying about money, you can actually take a moment and stop and think clearly and say to yourself, okay, so what do I want to do? What is the action step that I want to do? What decision do I want to make? And if you can make a plan, then you can decide, is this something I can do now? Is this something that I need to do later? When am I going to do that? What's the action I'm going to take? And then once you've decided on that action, then it takes a little bit of discipline, but then you tell yourself, okay, the decision has already been made. You've already determined the next action step, and now it's time to drop it. It's time to stop thinking about it because there's nothing else to decide. You already decided what you're going to do about it. The decision has been made. Now it's time to drop it. And you're telling your mind there's nothing more to think about, right? I've already thought through this. I've already come up with a strategy. I've already got a plan. There's nothing more to think about. And so then you're telling your mind, be still. Be still. Around this topic, we are done thinking about this. For now, be still. So maybe those words are peace, be still, if that resonates with you, or you can just, choose any way that you want to remind yourself that your mind it's time to be quiet. It's time to stop. It's time to be still. Okay. So you're really saying, okay, my mind is this incredible, brilliant instrument, and I'm going to think these things through. I'm going to make decisions. I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to have a strategy. I'm going to listen to my intuition. I'm going to think through this and use logic and reason and all the faculties of my mind. Once I've made the decision, it's time to be still. I'm not going to ruminate on this anymore. I'm going to take the action, and I'm no longer going to tolerate thinking these repetitive thoughts. If you're ruminating and really worrying about the past, same kind of thing. You can be like, okay, what's the truth about this? The truth about it is the past has been done. There's nothing else I can do about that. Is there anything I need to do in this moment to make amends for what happened in the past or to rectify any situation? If there is, think through it rationally, make the plan, and then again, peace, be still. I've thought about it. I've made a decision. We're done thinking about it, right? Or if it's like, you know what, that was in the past, there's nothing more for me to do, then you can just say, okay, it's in the past. There's nothing more to do. It's time to be still. We're going to let this go. Okay. Or if you're thinking about the future and you're really worrying about the future, same thing. Okay. We're in this repetitive worry about the future. Is there anything I need to do? Anything I need to decide in this moment for the future? Use the faculties of your mind, use your intuition, all of those things to determine what the next action step. And then once you determine it, peace, be still, right? So you're training your mind to say, okay, my mind is brilliant and genius, and I'm going to use it for these moments, for these problems, for these strategies. I'm going to use it constructively and productively. And then I'm going to tell my mind to be still. I don't need to think about this. I don't need to narrate every single thing that I do. I don't need to judge everything or everyone. I can actually just tell my mind to be still, and I can move into presence and being fully in the moment, observing and experiencing what's actually happening without the voice in my head narrating everything, right? So I love to use the words peace, be still. I know Richard Dotz likes to talk about it as the no mind or not mind, where you're just saying, not mind, I'm going out of it, right? Or you could think of it as divine mind. I'm now going to shut off this and go into divine mind. Any language that helps support you in being like, I've thought about this and I'm done thinking about it now. Now I'm going to be still and I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to be in the present moment and stop the habituated worry that's actually not productive. It's just habit. Right? So the other piece I wanted to just offer is if you find that you're still looping, maybe you've recognized like, okay, I've already made a decision and you try to still your mind and you're still looping, then move on to taking an action that actually requires a lot of focus and concentration. Because what you'll find is when you're doing something that really requires concentration, you can't worry at the same time. So it's really easy to worry and go into those default thought patterns when you're doing something that's kind of mindless, right? Like doing the dishes or getting ready or even driving, right? Where we're just kind of like in these automatic behaviors and our mind can just go the way that it wants to go, right? But if you decide like, okay, I'm going to go do something that actually requires concentration, maybe it's learning a new instrument or picking up the instrument that you already play, but learning a new song that's challenging for you. Or maybe if you're an athlete, it's doing some different skills or drills and practicing something that requires a lot of concentration. Or maybe it's going out and having conversations with people, not about what you're worried about, but conversations that really require you to focus and be fully present. Maybe it's helping somebody or volunteering or, putting yourself in these places and spaces where you really need to concentrate and be creative and be connected, because when you're in those spaces, you can't think two things at the same time, right? So it really directs your mind to break the habit of worrying, to break those loops up long enough to create some new neural pathways, right? So, again, just doing the best that we can do to really set ourselves up. It's not about shame or blame or guilting ourselves. It's really about just taking a step back and being like, oh yeah, I'm worrying, I'm ruminating, I'm actually thinking about something that I've already thoroughly thought through. There's nothing productive about worrying about this and thinking about it anymore. So then how do I want to redirect this? Do I want to start worrying, using that same energy to worry about what if everything works out? Or do I want to go do something that's different and requires concentration and creativity so that I can put my mind on something else that's much more productive and expansive? Or do I need to actually stop and think this through? Like, am I worrying because I haven't made a decision? I haven't created an action step. And if I could just pause, maybe even set a timer and say, okay, I'm going to think through this rationally and really think through this for this moment. I'm going to come to a decision and then I'm going to let it go. Then maybe you need to carve out some time for yourself to really think through that. For me, this is where I really lean into universal laws, right? Because for me, the more that I understand universal laws, the more it helps me think according to truth. It helps me think clearly and rationally and make decisions based on truth and what it is that I desire. So if you're ruminating, you can ask yourself, well, am I avoiding making a decision? Am I avoiding tuning into my intuition? Am I avoiding something where if I would actually stop and give myself the time and space to think this through, then I could make a decision. I could identify those next action steps, and then I could tell myself, okay, now you're just worrying for nothing. Peace, be still. We've already made a decision about that, and now it's time to move on and move in the direction of those action steps, right? So I hope this was helpful. Those are all of the ways that I take myself out of loops when I'm worrying, because I definitely, depending on the conversations that I'm in or how much social media or news or how much is happening in the collective, right? Like, I am definitely a highly sensitive, empathic person. So it's easy for me to really pick up on the worry and the fear and the doubt that's all around me. And, then that just fuels the parts in me that are already susceptible to that, right? And so the more that I'm able to recognize like, oh, okay, wait, I'm worrying, what's actually happening here? And what do I want to do to use the power of my mind in the direction that's really going to support me in being more of a light in this world, right? So that I feel better about myself and that I'm moving forward and contributing in positive ways rather than just ruminating and depleting myself and exhausting myself and all of those things, right? So it becomes a conscious awareness and then it becomes a conscious choice. And in that we have so much power and so much ability. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. If you would like support with any of this, if you'd like to learn more about universal laws or mindset or how to use your intuition to manifest the things that are most on your heart, then reach out. I would be absolutely happy to have a conversation with you and see if I am the right person to support you in your next steps. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kirsten Barrett. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.